Standing alone is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. It is not a position of weakness or isolation. It is the ultimate expression of courage. To stand alone means to hold your ground when others retreat, to believe in your truth when it's unpopular, and to stay rooted in your values when the noise of the world tries to drown your conviction. The most dangerous woman is the one who understands that her strength does not depend on who stands beside her, but on her ability to remain unshaken when everyone else steps away. She is dangerous because she has discovered that validation is a fragile currency and that approval is temporary, but self-belief is eternal. There is an unspoken power in being able to say, "I am enough," even when no one else echoes it. Most people fear being alone because it exposes them to their own doubts. But the woman who stands alone has faced those doubts and defeated them. She has looked into her reflection and seen not a lack of support, but a reservoir of potential. She has realized that standing alone is not about separation, it is about elevation. It is about stepping into the kind of independence that cannot be manipulated or diminished by external forces. She no longer waits for the world to tell her she is capable, she already knows she is. The world often teaches people to blend in, to fit molds, and to follow patterns already drawn by others. But the one who stands alone dares to break that pattern. She walks a path that has not been walked before, guided not by comfort but by conviction. Her steps may be uncertain at times, but they are always forward. What makes her dangerous is not aggression or rebellion, it's the quiet certainty that she doesn't need to belong to the crowd to make an impact. She knows that leadership begins the moment you decide to think differently, to speak truthfully, and to act courageously even if it means walking alone. This kind of strength cannot be faked. It is forged in silence, in the moments when no one is watching, in the times when self-doubt tries to creep in but is met with discipline and focus. The woman who stands alone has learned to find peace in solitude, clarity in stillness, and motivation in purpose. She does not chase recognition because her mission is larger than applause. She has learned that standing alone is not about pride but about principle. She understands that real power is not in being followed, it is in being authentic enough to inspire others to find their own voice. The most dangerous woman is not the loudest in the room, but the one whose confidence needs no introduction. She doesn't seek permission to be who she is. She doesn't shrink to make others comfortable. She stands tall in her truth, firm in her identity, and fearless in her pursuit of purpose, and that, more than anything, makes her unstoppable. Independence always carries a price, and the woman who stands alone knows this truth more deeply than anyone else. She understands that real freedom is never given. It is earned through countless moments of discomfort, rejection, and resistance. The cost of standing alone is often misunderstanding. People may label her as difficult, stubborn, or even cold because they cannot comprehend the strength it takes to walk without the crowd. Yet she does not let these opinions define her. She knows that the path of independence is rarely smooth, but every scar she earns becomes a reminder of her courage to choose authenticity over acceptance. She is willing to lose the comfort of being understood if it means staying loyal to her own truth. Every strong woman has faced the silence that follows when others fall away. She has learned to endure the loneliness that comes with choosing herself. The world teaches conformity, not courage, and so those who refuse to conform are often left standing in the shadows. But what most fail to see is that the shadows are where strength is built. When there is no one to rely on, she learns to rely on herself. When no one believes in her vision, she becomes her own believer. Every time she picks herself up from disappointment, she becomes a little more dangerous not to others, but to the limitations that once controlled her. Standing alone is not easy. It demands that she silence the inner voice that questions whether she is enough. It requires her to face fear without a safety net and to move forward without applause. The woman who stands alone experiences moments of doubt, but she does not allow them to define her. Instead, she uses them as fuel to strengthen her resolve. Independence is not an act of rebellion. It is a declaration of trust in oneself. She knows that comfort zones are cages disguised as safety, and so she steps beyond them, even when the unknown feels overwhelming. Criticism becomes her companion, but she no longer fears it. Each judgment only reminds her that she is walking a path most are too afraid to take. She realizes that standing alone is not about being against others, it is about being for herself. It's about protecting her peace, her values, and her dreams, even when the world doesn't understand. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity to prove that her strength is not conditional. Every setback becomes a test of her inner fire. She learns that independence is not the absence of support. It is the presence of unshakable belief. In time, she no longer sees solitude as suffering. She sees it as freedom, the freedom to think clearly, to decide boldly, to act fearlessly. She recognizes that the cost of independence is high, but the reward is greater. She becomes a woman who cannot be swayed by noise or fear. Her confidence is quiet, her determination unbreakable. The woman who stands alone has discovered the most powerful truth of all, that everything she needs to rise has always been within her. Solitude is often misunderstood as emptiness, but for the woman who stands alone, it becomes her greatest teacher. When the world grows silent around her, she begins to hear the sound of her own heartbeat steady, resilient, and full of purpose. It is in those quiet moments that she begins to understand who she truly is, beyond titles, opinions, and expectations. In solitude, she no longer has to perform or please. She simply becomes. The stillness that once felt like isolation transforms into clarity. She begins to see her path not through the eyes of others, but through the light of her own vision. Each moment spent alone refines her focus and strengthens her resolve. In the silence, she learns that strength is not about never falling, it is about how many times she chooses to rise. When no one is there to offer encouragement, she becomes her own source of motivation. When no one celebrates her victories, she learns to celebrate them quietly, knowing their worth is not diminished by the lack of applause. She discovers that solitude is not a punishment, but a privilege, a sacred space where she can grow without distraction, rebuild without interference, and dream without limits. The woman who stands alone transforms her solitude into a sanctuary where her doubts dissolve and her determination expands. Through this transformation, she finds a kind of strength that cannot be taught by comfort or companionship. The challenges that once frightened her now fuel her evolution. She realizes that every disappointment has given her discipline, every failure has taught her focus, and every loss has built her resilience. She no longer waits for circumstances to be perfect. She creates perfection out of persistence. When others see obstacles, she sees opportunities to rise higher. What once made her feel small now makes her powerful, because she has learned to depend on no one but her own will. The world often fears such women, those who are calm yet confident, soft yet unshakable. They cannot be controlled because their sense of worth comes from within. They are not swayed by opinions, not broken by rejection, and not defined by approval. This kind of inner strength makes her presence magnetic. People may not understand her silence, but they feel her energy. Her power does not come from aggression, it comes from authenticity. She doesn't shout to be heard, she speaks through her actions. She doesn't demand attention, she commands respect. Solitude has transformed her from dependent to determined, from uncertain to unstoppable. She no longer fears being alone, because she has realized that she is never truly alone, she carries her purpose with her. Every quiet night, every unspoken dream, every unseen effort has built her into a woman who walks with quiet confidence. She has mastered herself, and in doing so, she has become someone unbreakable. The woman who stands alone is not waiting for the world to recognize her. She is already shaping it in silence, with strength that echoes far beyond her solitude. True power has never been about control, domination, or position. It has always been about direction, the quiet, steady guidance that moves others toward growth and purpose. The woman who stands alone understands this. She does not seek to overpower, she seeks to empower. She knows that influence born from fear fades quickly, but influence born from authenticity lasts forever. Her strength does not intimidate, it inspires. Her independence is not a threat to others, it is an invitation for others to rise. When she walks into a room, she doesn't demand attention, her presence simply commands it, because people can feel the energy of someone who knows exactly who she is. The woman who stands alone has redefined what it means to be powerful. She knows that real power doesn't come from speaking the loudest. It comes from speaking the truth, even when her voice shakes. It comes from choosing integrity over approval, and purpose over popularity. She doesn't need to prove her worth because her actions do it for her. Every step she takes is guided by clarity and conviction, and that is what makes her influence unshakable. Others look at her and see not someone who has it all figured out, but someone who refuses to give up. And in that refusal, they find courage for themselves. Her leadership is quiet but transformative. She leads by example, not by telling people what to do, but by showing what's possible when you trust yourself completely. Her power lies in consistency. She does what she says she will do. She keeps her word even when it costs her comfort. She doesn't compete for validation because she knows that comparison is a distraction from creation. Instead of trying to rise above others, she focuses on lifting others up. She believes that true influence is measured not by how many people follow her, but by how many people discover their own strength through her example. Every act of integrity, every word spoken with intention, every stand taken with courage, these are the tools she uses to create impact. She has no interest in pretending to be perfect, because she understands that authenticity builds trust faster than perfection ever could. People are drawn to her not because she appears flawless, but because she is real. She owns her mistakes, learns from them, and keeps moving forward. In a world full of noise, her honesty cuts through like light in darkness. The woman who stands alone is redefining power for a generation that has forgotten what it truly means. She teaches that strength is not in the ability to control others, but in the ability to control oneself. She proves that leadership begins with self-awareness and grows through empathy. Her power uplifts, her presence restores faith, and her influence endures. She doesn't need a title to be respected or an audience to be heard. Her life itself becomes her message, one of courage, authenticity, and purpose that moves quietly yet leaves a lasting mark on everyone it touches. The woman who stands alone leaves behind a legacy that cannot be erased, because it is written not in words, but in the way she lives. Her life becomes a testament to what happens when courage meets conviction. She is proof that the world is not changed by those who conform, but by those who dare to stay true when the world tells them to bend. Her strength does not fade when she is out of sight, because it does not depend on recognition. It lives in the choices she makes when no one is watching, the choices to stay kind in the face of cruelty, to stay firm in the face of pressure, and to stay hopeful when the path grows dark. She becomes a symbol of what it means to lead without needing a stage, to inspire without needing applause. Every step she takes alone creates a ripple that reaches others who are still afraid to stand. Her example whispers to those who doubt themselves, reminding them that solitude is not emptiness but power. She shows that one person with purpose is more powerful than a crowd without conviction. She teaches that independence is not detachment, it is connection to one's highest self. People may not always remember her words, but they remember how her strength made them believe in their own. Her legacy is not built on what she gains, but on what she gives: courage, clarity, and a reminder that greatness begins with self-trust. The world may never fully understand her, and that no longer bothers her. She doesn't need validation to know her value. Her peace comes from within, and her confidence comes from experience. She has learned that the real reward for standing alone is not fame, but freedom, the freedom to live in alignment with her truth. She walks with quiet confidence, aware that she does not need to prove herself to anyone. Her presence is steady, her purpose clear, and her impact undeniable. When she speaks, her words carry weight because they come from a place of lived wisdom. When she acts, her decisions echo with integrity. She has become the kind of person whose silence teaches as much as her speech, and as time passes, those who once misunderstood her begin to see. They recognize that she was never distant, she was determined. She was never difficult, she was discerning. She was never alone, she was simply leading the way. Her journey becomes a map for others to find their own courage. She reminds everyone that standing alone is not the end of belonging, it is the beginning of becoming. Her legacy is not about being remembered for what she achieved, but for what she awakened in others. She leaves behind a trail of light that continues to guide long after she has moved forward. The most dangerous woman is the one who has mastered herself, who no longer needs to chase the world because she has already found her place within it. Her power is not in numbers, but in essence, a quiet, fearless energy that continues to inspire others to rise, to lead, and to stand tall in their own truth, even when they must stand alone.